It's a photograph of a baby's ultrasound.
Why is that? And that you designed that?
Yes.
Why? What does that mean?
It just represents life. I'm pro-life.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tirade TV. Glad you can all be here once again. If you like this type of content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. All comments are welcome as long as they're tasteful and respectful. And you know how I like to do it? Let's jump right into it. Okay, the big story right now is the interview Kanye or Ye had with Tucker Carlson. And Tucker Carlson, honestly, was probably one of maybe the only person or one of the very few people, let's put it that way, who I think could have performed well in this interview. He definitely couldn't have taken it to CNN. Couldn't have taken it to, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, whatever. Couldn't have done that. So I think his best choice at this point probably was Tucker Carlson and Fox News. But he said some lots of very interesting things. And I just have a few clips I'm going to play here just to, I guess, kind of express my opinion on them. The interview, the entire interview that I watched, I'm thinking it's the entire interview. It was like 59 minutes. And I watched every bit of it, and some parts of it twice, some parts of it three times. And yeah, I definitely have some opinions on it. And without further ado, let's jump into it, because this is
Week you just landed, and you have a lanyard still on from it, and there's a photograph on it. What is that?
It's a photograph of a baby's ultrasound.
Why is that? And that you designed that?
Yes.
Why? What does that mean?
It just represents life. I'm pro-life.
Boy, so you wear it on a badge. What kind of response do you get? And good, amen. I agree.
I don't care about people's responses. I care about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted than born in New York City at this point. That 50% of black death in America is abortion. So I really don't care about people's responses. I perform for an audience of one, and that's God.
it's amazing how so many black people don't realize, and I'm not saying all black people, I'm just saying many don't realize that one of the ways black people, other than black on black crime, or black on black homicides, which honestly, technically abortion is that too, but gun violence, someone shooting someone, another black person shooting another black person, taking another black person's lives, a black person stabbing another black person or beating them to death or whatever. Other than that, it's been abortion that's been killing black people. It's been abortion. The reason why we are only at what 12-13% of the population now in America has a lot to do with abortion. And hear me when I say this, I'm not saying all white people are racist. I'm not saying anything bad against Hispanics or any other race or so-called race in this country, but I do think there are a lot of people out there who fear, the black population overtaking everyone else, and they don't want it to happen. So they're going to try to do whatever they can to make it not happen, whether that's abortion or basically not doing anything about inner city crime in the black communities, hoping that black people take each other out. I do believe that has been going on. I mean, the statistics show that with the abortion statistics and the black on black crime and violence, it shows that. But I just like the fact that Kanye is bold enough and has enough courage to speak out on certain things when you have other people, like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Russell Wilson and different actors, and uh, you can even throw Jay-Z and Beyonce in there and Lizzo and whatever. they're not, they're basically so afraid to speak out on certain things. I respect him more. It doesn't matter to me if you love Kanye or Ye or hate him. You have to give this guy an A plus for his boldness. And that's what let me know he is actually uh working on his relationship with God. God is working on him, because when God calls you to be bold, it may not always look right, it may not always sound right, but he's going to allow you to be bold enough to get the message across. And I think at some point in this interview, I think Ye is going to kind of allude to that a little bit, but let's get back into this.
About Gabby and my good friend Lizzo. Lizzo works with my trainer, a friend of mine, Harley Pasternak. Harley Pasternak. When Lizzo loses 10 pounds and announces it, the bots, that's a term for people like, it's like telemarketer callers, like on Instagram, they attack her for losing weight because the media wants to put out a perception that being overweight is the new goal when it's actually unhealthy. Yes. Let's get aside
Exactly.
the fact of whether it's fashion and Vogue, which is not. Let's just, or if someone thinks it's attractive.
And that once again, that brings up a good point. When did being fat, overweight, out of shape, and obese become an in thing? Like, I remember back when I was younger, it was the fat kids that got made fun of. Now, should they have gotten made fun of? No. But what I'm saying is everyone knew that it wasn't healthy and it wasn't great to be big, fat, obese, and out of shape. And I'm not judging any people who are. I'm just saying I would like to see people, do the best they can to take better care of themselves. You know, uh, to put a emphasis on good health. And as he's stating here, they're basically parading Lizzo around like everyone should be like her. Everyone should dream and aspire to be like her. You know, no, I mean, if we don't see that as a black community or as a community, as Americans, period, as people, period, if we don't see that that's wrong, we're lost.
To each his own. It's actually clinically unhealthy, and for people
Exactly.
to promote that, it's demonic.
What can I ask?
Yeah.
I've noticed this also.
Yeah.
Why do you think they would want to promote unhealthiness among the population?
It's a genocide of the black race. They want to kill us in any way they can. Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics, with the KKK. And I believe that if we saw ourselves as a people and not a race, then we would treat our people better. Like if you go to a Jewish person and you say a race, it almost gets confusing. They'll cut you off quickly and say, we're not a race, we're a people. Well, our people are supposed to just say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Okay, well, what about, do you own the land that you're living in? Is the contract even in a language that's even possibly understandable?
Right.
For your heritage, and in America, we as blacks will down each other on how good we speak, but we're speaking English. There's nothing whiter than English. We're not in our native tongue, actually. So we judge each other on white goal lines, not based on exactly what our culture is based on. So what do you mean? He has his own buildings. What are you talking about? He's like Ralph Lauren. Yeah, he
Talking
made
about
Ivanka.
Trump here.
You like Ivanka?
Yeah.
You wrote a post on Instagram about her husband today.
Yeah, I had a dinner with Ivanka, Jared, and Josh. And a couple days later, I found out that Josh Kushner had 10% of Skims, which is a line that I.
Let me stop right here just for a second. The media, most of the mainstream media, outside of this interview here, uh, has definitely tried to portray Kanye or Ye as someone who is basically mentally ill, mentally unstable. Now, yeah, he may have had his issues in the past as far as like things that's happened to him. And I think at some point we've all had issues where we had to mentally check ourselves. Like, where are we right now? I think everyone's had that issue at some point, regardless if you deny it or regardless if you want to believe it. We've all had that issue. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's a spiritual battle that goes on within us. And I believe that when you're in a situation and you're not being who God wants you to be and doing what he called you to do, it's going to start taking a toll on you negatively, uh, from the mental standpoint. It will. And I mean, I'm not talking about everybody else. I'm talking about myself. And there are many other people out there I know who would agree with me. And I think that's my opinion. I think that's what he was battling there. Is like, do I want to, I guess the so-called battle of good and evil, God versus the industry. I think he was actually having that battle within himself. You know, I want to, be part of the industry. I want to still have an impact in the fashion industry and maybe still be a billionaire or whatever. But at the same time, I want to do what God called me to do, be who God called me to be. And I think that is a battle that he's been facing, and it's showing right now. It's showing right now. And I think people, like I said, just pretty much considered him to be this crazy person. Well, if you really think about it, look at all the people in the Bible that God used. They all had issues, and at some point, you could probably say that they were a little bit crazy, or a little bit on the uh, strange side. But the weird, the I would say the most special thing that God does is He uses the people that the world does not want to use. Does that make sense? you know, I think he alluded to it in this interview that Moses had a speech impediment. He stuttered. You know, he never thought that. When God was asking him to lead his people, he came up with every excuse. He's like, I'm not an eloquent speaker. What if they don't do this? What if they don't follow me? What if they don't do that? He was also a murderer. So God used Moses, who was a murderer with a speech impediment, to lead his people. Most cases he used the people that the world just want to throw away, or the world think is crazy, insane. God can use those people, and in many cases he has. And I kind of see that with Ye here. you know when god when God does something, it's not going to always look normal. It's not going to always look like the world would want it to look. But anyways, that's just my opinion on that. Let's get back to this interview here.
I developed with Kim. And I had a lot of issues with the imagery of Skims. I felt like there's a lot of imagery that was overly sexualized and things that I wouldn't want to see my wife and definitely not my daughters doing in the future in order to sell product. But it reaches another level when it's like, okay, well, this is what my wife is doing, and this is what she's doing for our children. But it reaches another level when her business partners are selling pieces of the company that they don't have to, because the company's already so successful and it's an internet-based company. So it's like they're really just selling off the company in order to create more relationships for themselves that are unneeded. It's like when I went to the Gap and with our release, they just like they shoveled it out. I'm very cautious with my words. I'm really big on being able to have an adult conversation in front of the children. So I don't use explicit language in interviews, especially. So I found out after this dinner that Josh Kushner had 10% of Skims and I had 5% of Skims. And regardless if, Josh Kushner figured out how to put $150 million, I'm sure it wasn't out of his own account, but $150 million, and I'm sure Jared still has a piece of that fund. They, regardless of them putting that money in, for me to have been an owner in it and not known, just from a place as a creative where Skims is so based on a lot of the Yeezy ideas, then it's based on all of the relationships in fashion, because I had to use my relationships in fashion.
Yeah, that would seem a little strange that he had to use all his relationships in fashion and his ideas, because because if you look at things right now, you know that, and it's easy to see that when it comes to fashion and relationships in the fashion industry, I would say that Kanye has more relationships. I would say he's more creative, has more of a skill or eye for it than the Kardashians do. Um, and most people probably won't agree with me on that because the Kardashians are kind of so big right now. Um, but they basically use people to get there. Like they use people like Kanye, even Ray J back in the day. They use people like that to get what they want. They drain people. They're like vampires. They suck blood from people in a sense. Uh, Not saying that they physically do it, you know, I don't think, but it's like they're drained. They drain from people. You know what I mean? Um, I remember James Harden, the basketball player, used to be with the Rockets and the Nets. I think he's with the Sixers now. Um, when he was dating one of the Kardashians, we used to joke around about that. I think it's Chloe he was dating. We used to joke around about that. Man, seemed like ever since he was dating the Kardashian, his game started slipping. Like literally started slipping. Like he was not playing well. And then after that relationship ended with the Kardashian, James Harden won an MVP and probably should have won another one, um, and become one of the greatest players of all time. Um, that I mean, we use that sometimes, as an example of what the Kardashians will do to you. Um, and thankfully, Kanye seems like he was able to get out. Um, but yeah, that's just my opinion on that.
In order to establish Kim in a way where fashionable people would say, "Hey, I'm down to wear Kim's line." And these VCs, they come in and they get a piece of it after the fact, and they run around and say they have ownership in it. So
By the way, I've never been he was talking about Jared Kushner in here, and he's one of those guys that I've never trusted. Something about when I see this guy's face on TV or I see him on social media or hear his voice, it's something about this guy I do not trust, you know. And I believe that he didn't have the best intention for the Trump family. Just my opinion. Um, it's just something very, what word am I trying to use here? Honestly, it's just something very evil or demonic about this guy. I don't know what it is. And I've always said this. Every time I see this guy's face on TV or on social media or hear his voice, and it's just something just comes over me, and it's like, no, this guy cannot be trusted. This guy is evil. That's just the feeling I get, uh, just the discernment there. And I've had it about some other people too, but that's just my opinion. Um, Obviously, I don't know the guy. Um, Probably don't care to know him, but I do believe God gives you a discernment about certain people, and that's the way I feel about him. But I don't know. I mean, what do you all think about this? Because he actually, and I don't know if it's on on this video here, but I don't think it's on here. But he alluded to the fact that, his ex-wife, Kim Kardashian, was pretty close to the Clintons. And when people are close to the Clintons, they kind of control everything. They're pulling the strings from behind. They're telling people what to say, what to do, how to act. If you can, go watch the full interview because it's very, very interesting. And like I said, I watched the full interview, and then I went back and watched certain clips from the interview. And there's really nothing that Ye said in this interview with Tucker Carlson. By the way, Tucker Carlson was great in this also. Um, there's really nothing that I can think of that I actually disagree with Ye on. Like, he hit the nail on the head in almost everything he said in his interview. And I like the fact that he's doing what he's doing, because for some reason in this country, definitely, as a black man in America, I think I could say this: people try to put us in a box. They try to say, as a black person, you have to look this way, act this way, speak this way, wear your clothes this way. You have to have a certain amount of tattoos. You have to live in certain areas. You know, I'm not going to let anyone put me in a box, because I believe that's not how God made me, to have someone or let someone put me in a box. And I think Kanye is the same way. I think he's kind of more like, you're not gonna put me in this box. I think Candace Owens is that way. I think Officer Brandon Tatum is that way. There are certain people. Obviously, my wife is that way. My household is that way. I know a lot of plenty of black people who don't want to be put in that box. Well, what was it Joe Biden said at the time? You know, basically, if you have trouble knowing who you're voting for, you're not black. If you don't vote for him, you're not black. That's really putting people in a box. And I think in the black community, it's a shame we kind of settle for that, rather than saying, no, I'm not like, you can't sit here and tell me every black person is the same, because they're not. Just like every white person is not the same. Every Hispanic is not the same. Every Asian is not the same. Those of Indian descent, they're not all the same. You can't put people in a box like that. But I really do believe, because of influences, like your professional athletes, like your LeBron Jameses and your Lizzos, and people like that, and your Jay-Z's and Beyonce's and people like that. Basically, they use those people to tell black people who they should be and what they should be doing. And we've been falling for it as a community forever, definitely for the past, 50, 60 years. And if you watch my other videos, you've heard me say, I think when JFK got assassinated and they put LBJ in, the black community went downhill. Like, it went down after that, because they started doing everything they can to pretty much eliminate the black community, to eliminate the black family, with the welfare system, and um, LBJ, from what I understand, he was quoted as saying, he'll have those N words voting Democrat for 200 years. And we haven't done anything to prove it wrong, because that's what we've been doing based on what we've been told to do. And you would think that black people who are supposed to be against slavery, you would think that we wouldn't want to be told what to do, because that is a form of mental or psychological, slavery. When they put someone like LeBron James and tell you, oh, you must drink Sprite, and you go out and buy Sprite based on what LeBron James said. LeBron James probably don't even drink that much Sprite. If LeBron James drunk that much Sprite, he would have had to retire 10 years ago. They'll put someone like Russell Wilson or Ciara, on TV, or some kind of event, telling you that you got to go get the jab. Why? We need to stop being so shallow-minded, you know, and to think that these people actually care about us. They promote certain black women, you know, like your Kamalas and your Karine Jean-Pierre, and I think it's Katina Jackson Brown. I hope I'm not getting the name right. The lady, you know, Secretary, United States Supreme Court. They put people up there like that just so they can basically get the vote and basically tell the black community what to do. It's crazy. They show nothing but videos of black men being killed by the police, which you know how I feel about that. Um, keep yourself out of those situations as best as possible. Now, am I saying all police are great? No. Like I say, 95% of the police do their job and they do it well. It's that 5% that I think is being used by the so-called powers that be to get a particular agenda across. But Kanye or Ye seem to be cut from a different mold, and that's good, you know, because not many famous, rich, wealthy black people are actually standing up. They're still being told what to do by the so-called industry or by the so-called system. So kudos to Kanye for coming out on that. Definitely got to keep this man in prayer, because there are going to be a lot of people right now that are going to be trying to end his career, end his brand. You know, they're going to, and possibly even end his life. Who knows at this point? But yeah, got to keep this man lifted up in prayer, because he's speaking the truth. And the so-called powers that be does not want anyone to speak the truth. So let me know what you all think about the interview. Um, I actually enjoyed it, and thanks for tuning in. Um, this has actually been sponsored by TiradeTV.com. Go on the website, pick out a T-shirt, hoodie, have some other things coming soon. Support a patriot, support America. You know, be happy and be proud to support, you know, something American, you know, on your body, on your shirt, you know. Um, and we have some other things coming soon, so definitely look forward to that. So please like, share, subscribe, comment, and as always, we must be a praying people and a praying nation. See you.